Currently in graduate school, dated, having held multiple jobs, and traveled to dozens of countries, I always ask myself one question when I'm done with all these activities. And that is, what has been the best part about what I just experienced? Now, there's a plethora of things I could choose from, and I can guarantee you it's not the sleepless nights I've had for school. It's not traveling 18 hours to go to another country, but it always comes down to the relationships that I've formed, to the people to the people that I've cried with, to the people who I've smiled with, and to the people who I've laughed with. But this can be a little bit of a challenge for us in today's day and age because I think a lot of us are continuously trying to go towards the next goal, reach the next level of competition. But what happens when we reach those goals? Are we happy? Are we overjoyed? There are two questions that I would like to start off with today. And by a show of hands, how many people here would be upset, would be angry if you were speaking to someone face to face and you can tell that although they're physically present, their mind is somewhere else. They're daydreaming and it makes you feel like you're not valued. It makes you feel like you're not important. Can I have a show of hands to see who would feel that way? Because I know I would. All right, perfect. I like the hands right away. Next question is, as a graduate student, I spend a lot of time in coffee shops. And I've realized that this is a great place to go and observe people. So once again, by a show of hands, how many of us have maybe been bombarded with so many things that we have going on with? We have to think about our kids over here. We have to think about our partner over here. We have to think, oh my gosh, we have 20 text messages to reply to, 30 calls to respond back to. So by the time we get to the barista and they say, hey, how are you? May I take your order? You're so caught up in this and you just say, I'm good. Can I get a non-fat latte, please? And then you just go about your day. Have any of us done that? We've been so caught up in our own life, and I know I have, so I'm going to raise my hand from the beginning. Perfect. I see some people raising their hand. I see some people nodding, so I'll take the nods as a yes also. So I'd like to now provide an alternative example that happened to me a few weeks ago. I walked into a coffee shop, and there were 9 people in there. And just as we've stated, all 9 people were on their phone or their computer. So I walked in and I said, you know what? My phone's going in my pocket. I walked straight up to the barista and I said, hey, Courtney, what's been the best part about your day? And she looked up and she just goes, just startled, takes a step back. And at this point, I'm kind of worried for the girl. So I lean in and I say, are you okay? And at this point, she's looking at me like I'm a total creeper to begin with to know her name. So she leans in with closed off body language and says, how do you know my name? And I'm startled. I take a step back and I say, Courtney, you have a name tag. You have a name tag. And at this point, she looked down at it and she said, oh, you're right. And I'll never forget this because at this point, I realized that it's not communication that we're lacking as human beings, but it's the human connection. Because Courtney and I, for 10 minutes after this, spoke about nothing in relation to coffee, nothing. We spoke about life, we spoke about our relationships. And at the end of those 10 minutes, she said, you know what, Armando? Best part about my day was actually right now, just talking to you. And she looked at me, she said, it's a little sad that I've been here for 7 hours, and this is the first time someone has called me by name. First time. And she has a name tag. And she said, you know what? Anything you want on the menu, it's on me. So I'm thinking, all right, I got a free coffee. But more importantly, this girl and I, we both made each other's day. But once again, who can blame us, right? Because we live in a society where we choose to go on social media to talk to random people, and we don't even talk to the people in our own home. Or what about some of us who maybe walk around with smiles on our faces, prideful, when in reality we're just dying inside, asking for someone to come help, for someone to be there. There was a study done by the National Science Foundation from Duke University and the University of Arizona, and they took 1,500 people from a random sample population in the United States, and they wanted to know who they felt like they could talk to. So they asked them a simple question: who can you talk to, or who do you feel you can talk to about your successes and your failures? Out of 1,500 people, 25% of them felt as though they had no one to talk to. No one. And so they decided to take this a step further, and they asked them, who do you feel you can talk to excluding your family? And when they asked that question, that 25% jumped up to 50%. 50% of people felt as though they had no one to talk to. And this, as a future healthcare practitioner, is an epidemic. There is no way that this should be this way. So I started thinking to myself, even after I left the coffee shop, how can we solve this? How can we think about actually not just getting a temporary solution, but a permanent one? So as I started thinking, I started going back to see how to solve it, and I thought through conversation. Because we have relationships, but how does a relationship start? Through conversation. And so I actually came up with a 3-step process that I take every conversation on, and that's what I'd like to take all of you on today. So before we begin on that, actually, we must know that every conversation we have is going to leave the other person feeling a little bit better or a little worse. And with Courtney and I, we both left each other feeling a heck of a lot better. And all it took was 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and it cost both of us nothing. So a lot of times when we start conversations, I'm curious to see how we feel about this, is I have my friends come up and say, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? What's going on? And what does this require of me or of us? It requires a thoughtless one-word response. My first year in college, I was asked thousands of times, where are you from? What's your major? It became automatic. It became a nuisance to talk to people. And I see people smile, and so I'll take that as we all in agreement here. And so the way I thought, we have to start conversations differently. So then it clicked one day. And the way we should start, and the way I start now, is by asking something very simple, just what has been the best part about your day? What has been the best part about your day? So what does this require people to do? This requires, first off, you're going to startle everyone, because people don't start conversations this way. Secondly, more often than not, I'll have people look at me and they'll say, well, that's a good question. What has been the best part about my day? And they're even shocked. And I've had people look at me and say, you know what, Armando? The best part was actually having this pizza at lunch. New pizza place right next to work, and I've been dying to try, and it was awesome. And I had someone else 2 weeks ago look at me and say, best part is that I actually was working out of the country for the last 2 weeks, and today I got to see my family for the first time in 2 weeks. And it was amazing. How much more did I get from that than if I just asked someone, hey, what's up? Hey, what's going on? And even more from a physiological standpoint, when you ask someone such a thought-provoking question to begin with, and they feel this euphoric feeling, they're increasing dopamine in their brain, which is the neurotransmitter in charge of your reward centers, your emotional regulation, and your pleasurable centers. So they feel happy, they feel good, and they have to associate that with something. And who are they going to associate that with? They're going to associate it with you, because you're the one who asked the question. So now moving on to step number 2. Step number 2 is where some people can find some contradictions, and I like this because I think growing up, I was always taught to make small talk with people, go to a networking event and look at their badge and say, oh, this, and just skim briefly about who they really are. Ask questions to know, but not questions to understand. And you might know that I want to be a physician, but do you understand why I want to be a physician? There's a difference here. And so for step number 2, I say ignore small talk. It's non-existent. Ignore small talk and ask open-ended questions. Because when we ask open-ended questions, to go back to my previous example of the guy who told me that he got to see his family for the first time in 2 weeks, my next question was, so tell me about your family. Because when I asked him this, and someone asks an open-ended question, they're not really sure when they've answered it. So they tend to just kind of talk and talk and talk. And when they talk, they give you more information than necessary, but if you are listening, you can extrapolate exactly what you need to continue the conversation and continue a natural progression. So he said, you know what? When I asked him, he said, I'm excited because I get to see my 2 sons, and we love playing baseball, and the Dodgers are about to start. So what was my next question? What are your sons' names? Tell me about them. Why do they like baseball? And what I'm trying to get across here is that it doesn't have to be an interview style. And it doesn't have to be someone looking at you and saying, tell me your deepest, darkest secret. But what it is just a natural flow from step A to step B to step C to step D. And before they know it and you know it, you both have had such an amazing conversation that they want nothing else but to stay talking to you. And it's very rare nowadays to have someone help you feel valued, understood, and loved. So when you can help someone feel this, I'm telling you, they will move mountains for you. Mountains. And now for the third step. And this one is where I was struggling a little because as I meet more people, I forget people's names. I'm not great with names. I'm not great with sometimes remembering little details. Maybe they told me their son's birthday and I probably forgot it right after the conversation. So I thought, how am I going to come up with a system to remember people? So what I did is I actually take my phone out at the end of every conversation and I will just go on my voice recorder and I'll regurgitate everything I remember from the conversation. So for example, if I meet someone today by the name of Todd, I'll go on my phone and I say, Todd, TEDxYouth, AlamitosBay, March 25th, has a wife, they've been married for 27 years, has 2 kids, one's in elementary school, the other one's in high school, these are their names, is worried because daughter doesn't know where she's going to college, but they're going on vacation in 3 weeks. And so I think we get the picture here. That I'll record it in my phone, save it in my computer under a file whose name is just simply Todd, TEDx. So next time I might meet Todd, I'll go on my computer, listen to this file a few times, and I will continue the conversation with this guy the exact same place that I left it days, weeks, or months ago. And I'm telling you, I've had people look at me and say, I never told you that. How do you know that about me? And I'm like, oh, you told me last time. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. And I've had people look at me and say, wow, you have a great memory. You must do great in school. And it's like, I don't have a great memory. I just do something a little bit different that people don't do. I have dozens of files on my computer of people that I meet. And it allows for us to create this sort of reciprocity. And the best example I can also give with this is when dating someone, I think a lot of times we try to put our best foot up front right at the beginning. Right at the beginning, we're opening doors, we're doing everything we possibly can to appear in this picture perfect image. But as time goes on, we forget that we did these things. We forget that this is what helped us fall in love to begin with. So something that I did, and even with my current relationship, is I recorded everything this woman said, and I have files on her. Because I can go and I can say, okay, this is what she likes 3 years down the road. This is not what she likes, so don't do this, Armando. Or like, this is perfect, so let's go over here. Don't step in this boundary because you know how she's gonna get. And so it becomes a tactic. And seeing someone so happy and so overjoyed, and you're the person who brought that feeling to them, is something that nothing else can do. I've had great grades, I've had great test scores, and I'm telling you, at the end of the day, a lot of people I know have great accolades. But can they make someone feel so special to the point that they're going to want to stay there? So at the end of the day, why should we care about conversations? And I'll tell you, we should care because the world revolves around relationships, and relationships start with conversation. Once again, if my friend wants to ask the pretty girl out, he's got to find a way to persuade her as to why he's the best candidate. If I have another friend who wants to ask their boss for a raise, how are they going to do that? They're going to try to find their boss at the best moment. Best moment. Why ask their boss on a bad day? And people don't understand this. And so when you do these things, things align to what has been the best part of your day, to having a natural progression and a natural flow, to recording so that at the end you know exactly who that person is and you understand them more importantly. Only then will our life be truly transformed. So once again, I'd like for all of us to remember to treat every conversation like a first date. Thank you very much.